to 1. Hi, I'm Madi Cupp-Enyard. I'm a double major in Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies and Theater Studies, and I'm the class of 2020.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Blaska. I'm a double major in Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies and Theater Studies, and I am the class of 2020. What you're seeing now are stills and videos from our rehearsal process, where a cast of 21 actors collaborated with a band of 17 and over a dozen other designers and producers to create an ensemble-based production that was really honoring the kind of cabaret collaborative roots of this story.
Hi, Jacqueline. I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about our senior project in Theater Studies, Chicago. I was wondering if we could start out by just telling everyone a little bit about how we met all those years ago.
I remember first seeing you as the silent dancer Jackie in Wild Party back in the beginning, and being so amazed and impressed by the way that you express emotion and character physically. And we ended up becoming double majors in the same two departments. And so having nearly every class together for 3 years was a pretty amazing basis of a creative and intellectual partnership.
So, Jax, you've talked a little bit about our combined double majors. We spent a lot of time in classes together in both our Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies major and our Theater Studies major. And I think that collaboration really led to our collaboration on Chicago. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that conversation even began?
Regardless of what we were going to do for our senior project, we sort of always were thinking about it, doing it as a joint thesis. And what that collaboration would look like really shifted depending on what the shows that we were looking at, and we obviously landed on Chicago eventually. But I literally never remember a moment thinking I'm gonna do my senior thesis project without Madi. Like it was always gonna happen. And so again, it just felt only natural to do that with somebody whose academic rigor I knew really well and trusted really well, and whose performance I thought was just, amazing.
Do you remember how we even decided on this project?
There was never any other question, because I think that in terms of a show that captured both of our interests about sort of the performance of gender and sexuality, as well as like the performance of performers, like what does it mean to be a performing body in a space? I think there's no show that better captures that. And I think it really worked both to our skill sets. And I know for both of us, what that really, a couple of areas that really came out in was fundamentally, what does it mean to be producing a sort of huge, bombastic, sexy musical that is basically about incarcerated women in 2020.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of those preconceived notions about the show, and I think Chicago is a pretty iconic show. It's the longest running revival on Broadway when Broadway is up and running. So could you just touch on some of the specific preconceived notions that we decided to push back on with the show?
I think that we push back against some of these ideas that Chicago is just like a scampy romp that is kind of a little bad, a little sexy, a little naughty, and tried to see what would happen if we took it at its word, and said, okay, so you say that we're in a jail, we're gonna put them in a jail, and we're gonna see what it feels like to dance cell block tango in orange jumpsuits instead of black lingerie, and if the audience still feels that that's sexy, why? Maybe we get to interrogate some of that a little bit more. I also tied in a lot of historical research about not only about the actual original playwright who wrote Chicago and then refused to sell the rights to the Broadway people before she died, Maureen Dallas Watkins, who sort of is one of the lost women behind Chicago, and the sort of real world reality of cabaret spaces in the 1920s in which this show is in theory stylistically set. And these cabaret spaces, particularly in different parts of Chicago and in New York, really were the site of like quite transgressive performance. They were some of the only nightlife options where interracial couples could go, because of the both race and sexual fluidity that was a little bit more tolerated in these underground spaces. And so I sort of used some of that research to theorize around a performance space that was a liberating, freeing space under the gaze of an audience, as opposed to the gaze of an audience being sort of oppressive and demanding of a performer. And that all, I think, really informed the rehearsal process, because throughout we were trying really deeply to create a rehearsal process that was very collaborative, really open-minded and accessible, and like I said before, sort of a specific, a production that only these people could have made here and now.
One thing I really loved that you did in the rehearsal room was bring in names and stories of people who are often lost, whether in the story of Chicago, Maureen Dallas Watkins, or in current politics of the world, bringing in stories of a lot of incarcerated women whose names are lost in just the media. I thought that was great, and it really helped me as an actor to kind of ground myself and think about whose stories we were really telling. This was the most, I think, important part of my senior year, working with you and our amazing team, and it's just been really lovely.
I completely agree. Madi, you are such an inspiration, and dear friend, and it has been just a joy and an honor to learn from you and work alongside you, and I can't wait till we get to do it again.